Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Resilient Living Podcast. Today, we've got our guest, Anthony Parker, on. Say hi to everybody, Anthony.
Hey guys.
So he's on with us, and also have my co-host Jared Wilson here with us today.
Hey, y'all.
And Anthony is going to be talking a bit about how to buy a homestead, how to look at doing that, and how to think through and work through what you need to know to buy a homestead and avoid some of the big pitfalls and actually get what you're looking for. So we're pretty excited about that. Before we get started, a lot of times we have Jared do a product plug from his shop just as we're waiting for people to come in. Jared, did you bring anything with today?
I did.
Nice.
So in reference to our rainy season that we've encountered recently after the snowpocalypse, Arcturus makes a great survival blanket. This is one that I have in the shop. I can show you the inside. It is a Mylar reflective coating that's cross-stitched into a tarp. So you can have your full, here we go. You can have a full tarp, but it has the reflective material on the inside. So you can build yourself a impromptu shelter and reflect back all of your heat. So even if you didn't even have a fire, that will keep you from getting too cold. If you do have a fire, that'll keep you roasty, toasty warm. So get some kind of a survival blanket to throw in your vehicle just to have on hand. Doesn't take up much space, not that expensive. It's a great thing to have.
Cool. Yeah, that looks like a pretty nice one.
It is.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing? Obviously you're a realtor, you help people buy homes, but you've kind of found a niche in homestead buying. How'd you get into this? Where'd your passion come from? Tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'll just do just kind of a quick little, how I got to our homestead, and then a little bit on how that came into real estate. So Brittany and I, my wife, lived in Milwaukee for quite a while, and we always wanted to get out and get to land, particularly after my daughter was born. We just hated how to see any green grass, we had to walk like 15 minutes to get to the park.
Yeah.
And so it's like you couldn't just be like, oh, hey, let's go outside and play. Like it was a whole ordeal. You got to get the stroller out, grab all your stuff, like plan for, you were going to be gone for an hour or 2 or 3. Like, it was kind of frustrating. And then we were a big fan of the farmers markets. We went every single Saturday, and you were really just like fresh fruit and produce, and we had some just really favorite farmers there. And so we always wanted to get some land, and we weren't really tied to Wisconsin, and took a bunch of trips down to Tennessee, and over the years just kind of saved up money and made a plan to move. And so we moved and bought a 1930s home on only about 11 acres, but it's been a farm for the entirety of its life. And we just kind of dived right in. We got chickens, llamas. I don't know whose crazy idea that was. Certainly not mine. And eventually we got pigs, cows. We have a goose. We've got ducks. My daughter
Nice.
runs a bunny business now. She's 12 now. She was 3 when we moved. And so we just kind of dove in and did all this stuff. We got a greenhouse. My wife does a lot of gardening. She has a very popular garden club. Her next meeting's on Saturday. And so we didn't know at all what we were doing. Like my wife's grandparents ran a dairy farm, but like we had I used to call my wife a brown thumb because she killed all the plants that we ever had in our house. And here she's now like hosting and teaching garden classes. So, it's been a long journey, and we've been doing this for about 8 years. And there was a lot for us to learn and just kind of stumble through. And then kind of how that ties into the real estate stuff. So 6 years ago, I decided to get into real estate. And there's a bunch of reasons why I did it, but a big reason was when we bought our house, we didn't feel like we were properly represented. Our agent was a very nice lady, but she didn't know anything about buying land. She was not a very experienced agent. And so we have some regrets for purchasing our property. Um, but it's mostly just like monetary stuff. So, we love our house, we love our land. Like, we don't plan on going anywhere. But there was definitely some things that we really wish that we had known beforehand. So I just kind of went into it with a heart of wanting to help people to not have an experience like mine and to, um, just kind of guide people through the process and everything. And then as time went on, I was like, you know what? I know a lot about land because we've been doing this. I know about raising
Mm.
chickens and, having cows and all this stuff. And so I started finding people coming to me being like, hey, I see, on your Instagram or, stories or whatever that you do homesteading. Like, can you help us in this? And so I've got a little bit of a niche. I mean, it's not all that I do in real estate, but I definitely have a niche on land and homes that are on land and just helping people pick out the right properties. And then I think it was 2 years ago or so, I started teaching a semi-regular online class, free class, just to kind of tell people, here's what you need to look for when you're looking to buy land. So
Nice.
quick little intro, I think.
Yeah. So I know just from having experience with your class, which is great. It's got a ton of information, probably quite a bit more than we can cover today. But I know that one of the big things that is kind of harped on in the class, or one of the things that you focus on initially, is actually putting together goals and a list of goals for your homestead. Can you talk a bit about what that might look like?
Yeah,
Why
so
it's important?
I was telling my daughter this the other day that people think in their heads that everything is a lot simpler than it is. You know,
Ain't that the truth?
I just have to throw some like beans down in the ground and I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it's
have
easy.
bean stalks, right? Like it's easy. And I think in part it's a coping mechanism because if people really sat down and thought about how complex the world is, like it's overwhelming. You
Yeah,
know,
Yeah.
like everything is super complex. I mean, just thinking about like our logistics chains in the United States to,
they're insane.
bring produce from California over to Tennessee or whatever. It's ridiculous. And so anyway, people think things are really simple. But when you actually start to do research and you start to dig down into things, you start to realize, okay, maybe this is a bit more complicated than I thought. Homesteading is 100% in that category. People are like, oh, I'm just going to buy 5, 10, 15 acres and I'm going to, get chickens, cows, goats, a milk cow, grow a garden, have a green, like do everything,
All the things. Yeah,
all the things. And I'm not saying that you can't do all the things, but you need to really,
know
before
what you're
you
getting
just
into.
yeah, before you dive in, you need to just kind of set some goals for yourself, like realistic goals. Do a little bit of research. Think about where you want to be on the property in, 3 to 5 years, like whatever property you get. And then that can help you to decide what kind of land you got. If you
So, what
want
were
to
your
have,
goals when you got your place?
so our goals, we didn't follow this advice. I mean, this is like I said, it was a learning process for
Yep.
us. Like we dove head first and made some stupid decisions. Like, we got llamas as one of our very first animals. Why? I mean,
Because
Emperor's New Groove. Who doesn't want
right.
llamas, right? And there was reasons behind it. Like they're supposed to be sort of like donkeys, like guard animals
Mm.
to an extent, because they're weird and kind of scary. Um, but it didn't really work out very well. There's high parasite load in Tennessee. They're from a dry climate. We're a wet climate. Like it just, they're really not well acclimated to Tennessee as a general rule. And they, as we decided after having them for a while, they really don't have a whole lot of use. They weren't good at garden anything, and they don't really have products that you can use. So we didn't keep them long term, and I wish that we had just jumped into cows right away. But
Mm.
here's the thing: the funny thing about cows is meat cows are really easy. They're bred to be simple.
Yeah.
Like you throw a cow out on the pasture, and as long as they have access to grass and water, like you're golden. You know, I
Right.
mean, we'll look outside every once in a while in the morning and be like, "Oh, look, there's a new cow." Like, I guess our cow was pregnant. I mean, it's not quite that,
But yeah.
but it is. Like we have an idea. We don't get our meat cows pregnancy checked. It's not worth the money. And so we're like, okay, well, they're with the bull,
Yeah.
so
If it happens, yeah.
it happens. It happens. Like, I mean, we do planning. We split them up. If need be, of course. And so, I mean, we're not hands off by any means, but we also don't have to worry about the meat cows as much. Like, it's a storm outside. Like, they don't even care. Like, they won't even go into the barn. They're just out munching their grass, chewing cud.
Yep.
But we didn't know any of this stuff. Otherwise, maybe we would have jumped in the cows first. So our primary goal was just to try to be a little bit more self-sufficient. Try to grow some of our own food. Get some chickens, have our own eggs. We got meat chickens within a year of buying our property, and I'd never butchered chickens before.
Oh.
So that was a big learning process, and we again just dived headfirst into it. And so yeah, I mean our goals were primarily just some self-sufficiency and having a property that we could run around in. But we had no idea how much work it was going to be. Like maybe we had a little hint, but it was a lot. But getting back to just some of the things to think about when you're looking at your goals is, the type of animal that you want to get is really going to affect the type of land that makes sense. You can have chickens on anything. I mean, you can have chickens on a quarter acre. Like that's not going to affect too much what you want to do. But if you're like, I would really like to have, a couple of cows or a small cow herd or, some milking cows or something, you're going to want to start to get at least like 5 acres, and you're going to want open land, not all wooded. Um, if you want pigs, like you can have some wooded stuff, that's fine. Just make sure that, you're going to spend some time and money putting in proper fencing for pigs, because if they get into your neighbor's yard, you're going to have a very irate neighbor very quickly.
Yeah.
Because they make a big mess. And then if you want animals right away, does the property have fencing? If it doesn't have fencing, do you know how to put fencing up? Are you familiar with like temporary electric fencing, for instance? That's awesome fencing and very affordable. It is supposed to be temporary, but I certainly would never have temporary fencing up for 7 years straight. And I
Yeah.
don't know anyone else who would do such a thing.
Oh, never.
Definitely wasn't you.
My poly wire has been up for so long that it's literally disintegrated. It's crazy.
Oh no.
I ended up buying this really nice braided stainless steel rotational grazing, and it's so much nicer. It's not even funny. It's really strong too. That polywire stuff's kind of crappy, but honestly, it was supposed to be temporary. So
Cattle are so easy to keep in for the most part that,
and they really are. Yeah, and
Electric
fencing is so insanely effective.
Oh yeah.
Like it's so good, especially for pigs, but like cows are great. We had one cow, he was our bull. We got him when he was 3 months old. And one of our other poor choices was we transported him in the back of our SUV. And it was a 2-hour drive from Red Boiling Springs. It was yeah. We had to stop a couple of times and re-ratchet the straps down. It was not smart. We were told by the people we were buying from, oh hey, he's not very old, it will be fine, you can just stick him in the back, no big deal. The guy was like 150 pounds. We stuck him in the back, like we could barely lift him. And he was his mom was a milk cow, and so I don't know, I guess he just grew like a weed. Um, but yeah, anyway, he was so well trained on the electric fence that if we wanted to move him from one pasture to the other and we just like dropped the fence down, turned it off and dropped the fence down, he wouldn't even go over.
Ah,
Yep.
that is awesome.
No, he was a very, very good bull. Unfortunately, we did have to send him into the freezer because we needed to change our bull. He was
Mm.
it was getting to be a little too much relations there.
Ah, yes.
So eventually you gotta swap the bull out, and we were changing breeds around anyway. So, but yeah, goals super important just to kind of sit down and think about what you want to do and how that's going to affect the type of land that you're going to want and how much you want. You know, a lot of people think they need a lot more than they do. You know, I mean, you can do a lot with just 5 acres. A
Oh
lot,
yeah.
lot. I mean, you
Yeah,
can do a lot with even less.
I think people get really bent around the axle about getting enough property.
Hmm.
And I had one lady approach me with a question at a festival once because I was on a Q&A board, and she kind of explains her situation and asks, what can she do on her property? And so the situation was she had bought this house. It was on a fairly steep slope on a north facing hill
Mm.
that was all wooded and mostly rock. I'm
Ugh,
like, maybe timber. I don't like
that's all
there.
bad.
She traded a
Pigs.
really bad spot to get enough property that she thought she wanted. She wanted 20 acres. And so instead of thinking about, what she's going to use it for and does it work for that and putting her goals down and thinking through it, she bought this essentially useless property. And so yeah, writing down if, water independence is your goal, well, you're going to need a really good spring, or you're going to need an existing well, because you don't want to guess at drilling a well and hoping you're going to hit something. So yeah, your goals, if you write those out, that's going to give you a lot of head start in picking a good property.
Someone's got to guess on the well eventually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're one of your top priorities is water independence, that's a different thing than if you're like, I'd like a well, but it's already on city water. Let's
Hmm.
try drilling for one. There's a difference in that, I suppose.
It's tough too, because I mean, you will run across properties where you don't have a water source and you will need to drill a well, and it's
Mhm.
not a for sure thing, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
I sold some land last year that was the situation. You know, there was 40 lots available. They were splitting up like 1,200 acres, and there wasn't water for any of them.
Oh,
And it's like, okay, well, everyone's gonna have to drill a well. Well, are we gonna hit water? You ask the well driller. I don't know.
Yeah.
get the
I,
water.
I I'm not a well driller, but one of these days, the next time I talk to one, because I've talked to them a few times, I'm gonna ask them. I was like, why don't you guys all pool together and get like a ground penetrating radar and just offer a service? You know, like $1,000, we'll bring it to your property, and we'll check. I mean, surely that works. Like that's how they find oil.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems crazy to me that like you could spend $25,000 digging for a well and not find water.
Yeah.
It's a good racket to be in, I suppose.
I mean, they don't. I mean, I'm sure they care to some extent, but it's like they're getting paid one way or the other.
It's like a
So
meteorologist.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Well, and
Pretty
if they
much.
can poke two holes and charge you some extra, but get you a good well,
Hmm.
it works out well. Not that I'm saying they're all crooks.
No. No.
There's not necessarily a huge incentive to um yeah.
Well, you say that, but what's actually really funny is one of the first well drillers I called here. They're a generational driller, so his dad did it and he did it, and this guy's already old, so I mean he's been in it for quite a while. He was trying to convince me not to drill a well.
Mhm.
He's like, "Well, you on county water?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, what do you need a well for?" Well, I want one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I don't know, man." It
That's
was it
funny.
was it was funny. I've had that happen a couple of times. Like, you know, people in the South are funny like that. You know, they try to convince you not to spend money on things because,
Right.
I don't know, they just don't, I guess. You know, like someone there's this guy who does some HVAC repairs, and I mean he could sell you a new HVAC system, but he tries to fix stuff and he'll go like out of his way to try to fix things when maybe it would just make more sense to just buy a new one.
Right.
So, well, I don't want you to spend the money. Okay.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that attitude. I mean, there's something to be said for people actually caring and trying to
True.
save money, but
I want to
at
be
the
given
same
that
time,
option.
yeah,
It's a good attitude to have because we are too quick to throw things out.
right.
You know, and a little bit of elbow grease could fix a lot of different things. So,
True.
and that's good. And you know, Middle Tennessee has a really robust secondary market stuff. You know, your auctions and different things. I mean, they're really good here.
Yeah, they are.
Yep. Man, kind of the next thing I wanted to hear your thoughts on is thinking about like access and what surrounds the property, because I know those are two big things that we really need to think about as far as purchasing a property. So, what could we even look at before going out to the property? Let's say using Google Maps or some other service.
Yeah, so knowing what's around a property is really important. You know, like the one thing that you can't change on a property is the location. Like you can do a lot. Like the land is only kind of changeable to I mean, you can get a if you're willing to spend money and bring dirt in and stuff, like you can do a lot with land, but you can't change the location. So the location is really important. You know, how close you are to different things. You know, particularly things that are important to you, like hospitals, grocery stores, you know, schools, place for your kids to play, like, you know, any of those things that are important. But also, you know, what other things are around the property that may get in the way of, you know, your goals. For instance, like you want to have bees, let's say, but you're across the street from row crops, you know? You know, maybe you're downstream from, you know, the old Monsanto plant, you know, like
Oh,
there might be some chemicals leaching there. So um, some of these things are going to be harder to know or find, but I always find it really useful to grab, you know, some sort of satellite imagery and look at the property, look at what's around it. Um, you know, one thing that a lot of people come to me and that's a concern for them is being too close to cell towers. And what I usually tell people is try to be like 1 to 3 miles from the closest cell tower. Because
Mhm.
if you're too far from a cell tower, what ends up happening is one of your neighbors is going to sign a lease and then you're going to have a cell tower and it's going to be like a quarter mile away. So
Right.
in my opinion, it's actually better to know, hey, there's a cell tower 2 miles that way, and then there's another one 2 miles that way. Well, they're probably not going to stick one in the middle of that because your service is fairly decent. But you know, paying attention where those are at, um, you know, making sure that you have road frontage on your property is really good and important. Or if you don't have road frontage, that you have a very clear easement that's deeded. Um, you know, let's see what else. You know, if you're buying raw land, something you got to consider is you're going to have to put a driveway in. So you want to make sure that there's a good spot to put a driveway. You know, I mean, if you've got a property that's like straight down like this or straight up like this, like that can be pretty expensive to put a proper access in. You know, our
And to maintain
winters,
it.
mhm.
yeah, and our winters here aren't too crazy, but you know, if you got something that's a pretty steep slope, I mean, you get a little bit of water or ice on the ground, you may not be able to get in and out of your driveway. So things to think about when you're looking at land for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was moving down here, there was a house on the market and it was like 125,000, but it's a really nice, almost 2,000 square foot house, really pretty, pretty property. And so I got down here and went to look at it and I had my two-wheel drive vehicle and I couldn't get all the way up the driveway. Because at the time I hadn't gotten into, understanding topographical maps and looking at terrain or thinking that anybody would ever build a house up such a ridiculous hill, so I didn't even think of it
Sure.
until I got out here. I'm like, oh, that's why. That's
Yeah.
why that house is so well. It was also 10 years ago, so it was a lot less. But it's something that I could have even checked online had I thought to.
Yeah, that's a good point. The topographical maps are great. Although I will say there's a caveat with those is scale is darn near impossible on those things.
Yeah.
Because you look at a 5 acre property and you're like, oh, those lines are really far apart, and you go and look at it and you're like,
Ooh.
and then you go and look at a 100 acre property and you're like, wow, those lines look real close, and you go and look at it and it's like nice, gentle, sloping hills. So that's my caveat for anyone looking at stuff is you can get a fairly decent idea, especially once you're experienced in reading them and
Hmm.
understanding that scale. But at the end of the day, there's nothing replaces looking at it. So
No.
you
And
you gotta see it.
yeah, you absolutely have to. And I've gotten really good at pulling that data and mapping it onto new maps, and understanding it to really finite detail, but or finite detail. That's a weird word. But even then, I need to go out to the property really to see somebody's property to understand what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know how accurate those topographical maps are. I mean I have to imagine that the land changes fairly substantially over time from when it's last been updated. So they seem to be pretty decent overall, but again, like there's going to be some sense of scale that's difficult to always
Yeah,
address. Um, and it's not always really clear if something's going up or down until you
true.
actually get on it, because at least none of the topographicals that I've seen tells you if it was up or down unless you can see another marker for the height and you can see that, hey, it went up or down. So
Yep. Yeah, you have to use a it's called hillside shaded
Mhm.
on LiDAR, and that'll give you overlay that with the contours, and then you can see much better where things are going. But
see,
most people don't.
that's getting real crazy into it, and I'm like, let's
Right.
just go look at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because we're gonna have to do that anyway,
All right.
you
Yep.
know. So yeah, because I mean, it's so important to look at the properties. I mean, it's one thing to like sight unseen buy a neighborhood home, but land, like you can't. Land does not photograph well, particularly if there's trees. It just
Mhm.
doesn't photograph well. Drone footage is okay, video footage is okay, but it's just the perspectives are just not right. And so you gotta look at something. There was this property last year where I looked online and you know I get a pretty good idea of what land should cost. And I was looking at this land and I was like, these prices are too good. There's something wrong. And I had a client who was like, well, I want to go look at it. And I was like, looking at the online photos and the overhead, I was like, these don't seem all that nice. But we went out and they were so nice, like super, super nice properties. Like I was really impressed with the price that they put on them and the work that the seller had put in and to like, making them viewable. And the listing agent was, really great about showing the properties and everything. And so, I mean, even me having done a lot of land, like, you really just got to go and look at it. Like, there's
Yep.
only so much that you can research from afar.
Yeah. True. Um, can you tell us a little bit about thinking about utilities like water, power, when you're purchasing a homestead?
Yeah, so you've got kind of three major things that everyone needs to think about, unless you're deciding to go off grid. But even if you're doing
Mm,
off grid, you still have to think about all three of these things, just in a different perspective.
right.
So you've got water, power, and waste. Um, so if you're going to be buying land, you need it to have a perk site so that you can put a
Mhm.
septic in. Like that's just bare minimum. You
Right.
know, there's probably some counties, more rural counties in Tennessee where I may or may not have seen people who just kind of fly by wire on septic stuff and just do whatever they want, you know.
I'm not saying
Um,
that I have neighbors that have IBC totes in the ground, but Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, but I think most of us, if we're going to be spending the money to like build a house and invest in a property, it's not that big of a deal to like spend the money to put a septic in. So, and it makes sense. Like if you're ever going to resell, and people should
Sure.
always consider the possibility of needing or wanting to sell, then you really want to have a proper septic site and a proper septic installed. And it's not nearly as expensive as people might think, particularly if you're from um, like the Midwest or the East Coast,
Mm.
um, because you don't have to dig them in the ground. I mean, shoot, half the septics I see about this deep.
Oh yeah, right.
um, so definitely, because Tennessee's a rocky state.
Yeah.
There are 100% properties out there where you cannot perk it, and they call those recreational only properties, basically. You could do composting toilets, various,
Mm.
in more rural spots, you could have your brown water, or gray water, sorry, not brown water, gray water, just go down the hill or whatever. I mean, there's methods around it, but generally speaking, you want to have a site that properly perks. Um, Power is important for the majority of people. We want to be able to have power, whether that be for your computer, your lights, your stove, heating, cooling, whatever. We want power. And when you're going to buy land, particularly if it's raw land, it's very common for there not to be power right there. There might be power on the road, but maybe there's not power where you want to build. And so you're going to have to look at, okay, well, I'm going to have to clear, and it's usually like a 50-foot right away. I think it's 50 feet. Right away, depends on the power company.
Right.
You got to clear the right away, and then they got to put the poles in, and you got to pay them to do that.
Yeah, which can be expensive depending on how far you're going.
Yep.
Mhm.
Most of the time, they'll give you like a pole for free. It varies by power company. You still have to pay the hookup cost, but you don't pay for the pole. But sometimes there may not actually be power on the road. And if there's not power on the road, you got to think, okay, well, where am I going to get power from? And then you're starting to talk, well, we're going to have to get easements from the neighbors. And
Yeah.
that's never a for sure thing.
Right.
And so thinking about power is really important. So there's you definitely want to be asking questions about that, making sure that if you're not doing solar panel off grid,
Right.
making sure you got something ready to
Ryan,
go.
how much was it that Stacy said that she got quoted to get power out to her place? Wasn't it like $30,000 or something stupid?
Yeah, it was like 30 or 40,000, and I've heard way more for certain
Golly.
properties. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Solar.
how far back was it?
I'm not sure.
It's
It's a
I don't
ways
want to
back
give
in
away
there.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ways back. It's less than a quarter mile, I think, and yeah, but
That's pretty
it's a good.
expensive. I had a
Mhm.
property where I got a quote from the power company, and they were saying it was only going to be about well, I don't know. Did that include clearing the trees too?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, because the quote I got from the power company was something like $10,000, and it was a quarter mile. It was $5,000 to $10,000. That didn't include the clearing, and that was the run power from. It was about two properties over.
Wow.
So really, it wasn't too bad considering. Um, and the variation was depending on how many poles that they would need, because
Sure.
some of the land was kind of like this, and you can't. They were estimating. I think it was something like 8 poles were going to be needed, but it could end up being like 10. So, but then you had to clear the land for them already. So then
Sure.
there's
Right.
the clearing cost for a quarter mile is over uneven, rough terrain. I don't know what that would cost. So I could definitely see 20, 30 being, the end price at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is water. We all need water to survive. It does come from the sky, so that is always an option. I
Yep.
do have a friend who their non-drinking water is from rainfall. So I mean that is a possibility. But otherwise, I mean, Your primary sources are going to be your utility district water, unless you're in the city, which I don't know why you do that. Then that would just be city water. And then rainwater or springs. Tennessee is well known for their springs, so that is not an uncommon thing to come across. So if you can find a property with a spring, that's awesome. And then wells. Tennessee has kind of hit or miss aquifers is probably the best way to do it, to say it. Um, I would say most of the time you could probably get water, but you might have 1,000-foot well.
Oh yeah, right.
So, and do you
Well,
want
and
to
there's
spend that
issues with
money?
there's issues with quality too, because you've got
Yes,
you've
especially
got
in a deep well.
iron, sulfur, and then I've
Uranium.
actually come across several homesteads that people have bought where we've ended up finding, what do they call them? Injection wells.
Hmm.
And injection wells are where somebody drilled a big hole in the ground to inject something into it.
Oh,
A waste material of some sort.
yes, right.
Sometimes chemicals, sometimes I don't even know what.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I thankfully have not run across any of those, but it is something that every seller has to disclose
If they're aware of it, yeah.
if they're aware of it. Yep. So I've never seen anyone say yes on it. Not yet.
Well,
But yeah,
as you and I both know, disclosure is a bit of a joke as far as
it is, unfortunately.
yeah. And
It is.
coming from Minnesota, which you did as well, the disclosure laws, they were really strict about them. Square footage, any disclosures, it was a really big deal if you missed something on disclosure.
Mhm.
Here it's kind of routine, don't ask, don't tell seems to be the
I've noticed.
mantra.
Yeah, I mean, buyers can and do successfully sue sellers. So, but it's difficult. I mean, you have to prove that they knew about it, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, we are to some extent a buyer beware state, but we also have very lenient contracts for the buyers. So, it is on them to do the inspections, and they can back out for any reason in inspections. So, whereas some states, I'm not sure exactly which ones. I think Virginia might be one of them. When you enter into a contract, you actually have a non-refundable earnest money deposit, even if you back out for inspection. So we are fairly friendly as far as, like inspection periods go. But yeah, there's definitely, I mean, it is kind of a buyer's beware. They're supposed to. I had a client from another state come here, and they asked me for the property condition disclosure, and I send them the property condition disclosure, and they're like, "That's it." It's so short. There's no info in here.
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, can I get some more info?" And I was like, "I can try, but I don't know if they're going to give us much more." Although in this situation, it wasn't because the sellers were being difficult. It was because the sellers passed away. So
Oh, that makes it harder. Yeah.
it does make it a lot harder. Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot less info to be had at that point. So, but yeah, water, very important. Don't just assume that you can dig a well and find really good water. I wouldn't assume that you can't, but you have to go into it knowing that there is a risk there. I've seen 150-foot wells that are amazing and 1,000-foot wells that are crap.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and you might, I had a property where they had over 100 parts per million of sulfur, which the guy who tested the water said it was the highest sulfur content he'd ever seen. They had to put in a very expensive multi-stage filtration system to be able to drink the water without gagging.
Yeah. Gosh.
And it
I
was
can
really
imagine
deep
the
well.
smell. Ugh.
No, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. So, that's something that you got to think about. Like you spend $20,000 on a well, another $10,000 on getting the pump and the power and the well house put in, and then you got
Only
to
to
go
get rancid water.
only to get high sulfur water that you then need to spend many, many more thousands of dollars putting in an expensive filtration system.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that is a thing that can happen, so think about it.
Well, in springs here too, people might go and see water gushing out of the ground
Okay, woohoo!
and assume,
Yeah.
"Yay, I've got a spring." And so there's multiple things to consider there. One, we have wet weather springs. So a lot of times there's springs that'll show up that are only for part of the year.
Yep. I've got one of
Um,
those.
yep, you do. Another one that I've seen is you'll get springs that are in a place where they're not really capturable.
Yeah.
Basically, the area will get washed out consistently because it's in a specific spot in a valley where you really can't do much with it. Or it might be too far from the house or a building site, or it might be downhill, and that adds challenges.
Right.
So, even with springs, you have to be really aware of what it is, whether it's going to dry up, how if it's known to be a year-round spring on a consistent basis, and even then, you should probably have some storage to get you through some lean times.
Definitely recommend storage.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, I've sold a few properties where they had springs as their primary water source, and I mean, like anything that you control, I mean, you do have to do some work on it, do some maintenance, and you might get a frog stuck in your pipe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Algae can grow. Yeah, you can all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an ask me how I know story.
Yeah. Twice.
But yeah.
Oh.
Did you saw somebody have that happen to as well?
Yeah, twice.
Okay. Because I've had that. I've have a client who I now maintain their spring on a couple times a year. And yes, frogs and other things getting stuck in the underground lines is a consistent issue.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you have to go out there a couple times a year and just check everything, clear out some weeds, and make sure your screen isn't. Make sure you have a screen.
Make sure, yeah,
and that your screen isn't all covered in crap. So, yeah. I have another client who bought a property. I think it was 2 years ago now, and he has the best spring ever. Like it was crazy. And when we got really dry, not this last summer, but the summer before, he was worried because it had dropped down to only like 10 gallons per minute. And I was like, that's a really good spring. I mean,
everyone else is dry.
Everyone else is like crazy dry, and you're still getting tons of water. So,
one little tip for if people are looking for springs in the general kind of Middle Tennessee area is that the springs that seem to be the most consistent and the best, there's slate underneath them. So the water, as the water runs down,
hits that slate and runs out.
It's running down on slate, and those seem to be by far the best springs here.
Makes sense.
Slate, man, all I ever see is limestone.
So usually the limestone, this isn't always, but usually the limestone are springs at the bottom of the hill. And the slate is actually uphill. And here in the topography, for whatever reason, it tends to work out that the slate is about 2/3 of the way up the hill, somewhere right in that range. So if you can get those springs, those are usually the best. And from what I can tell, looking at maps and data and all kinds of other stuff, those lower springs are oftentimes just the upper spring that was slate finding a new path back out because they'll go back underground. So a lot of times it's a spring that's already emerged that's going back underground that you're looking at the bottom.
I always love driving around in winter and you see those rock faces and they're just like weeping water that's freezing into icicles.
Yes.
It's like, man,
sheets
water.
of ice.
Yeah, rock is so porous. It's crazy.
It really is.
Like if you really think about it, you know, obviously not all rocks created equal, but you know what we got here just seems real porous.
Yep. Well, and that's what's really cool is you
yeah.
actually end up with this water battery where as water hits the top of that rock system, it takes time to filter down through. So you get this water that's essentially stored in place in a hillside, and it makes its way down until it hits something it can't get through, which is the slate layer because it's impervious. And then it has to find a way out to the edge. And so the water you're getting at one of those springs might be several years old as far as filtering through the rock. So it's pretty cool how it works.
Or several decades if it was at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, natural filtration systems. It's cool.
So, one of the things I see people making a big mistake with, especially when homesteading, because there's going to be extra costs, is not staying within their means on the price of the property.
Hmm. I mean, that one's really tough. You go and buy, a house in a neighborhood and you spend 400,000, like you spend 400,000. If,
Yeah.
if the house is in fairly good shape, like you may not have a whole lot of other expenses coming up unless something breaks, and
Right.
obviously that's always something to think about in a home, like your HVAC might go out or your water heater might explode, like who knows? Anything can happen. But with a property that you're wanting to like homestead on, you got 5, 10 acres, like you have extra expenses you need to think about if you actually want to do anything with the property. So in addition to having a home that you also have to maintain,
Right.
you're going to need fencing, most likely. Almost any animal you have, minus chickens, because they don't respect fences at all, um, you're going to need some sort of fencing. And fencing requires maintenance. And if there's already fencing on the property, I swear 9 times out of 10, they did a terrible job at it. I've seen so much bad fencing, it's crazy. Um, and so you got to think about that, and then you've got the acreage has to be managed. It's got to be cut on the regular, otherwise the Tennessee weeds are going to take it over.
Yep.
And then I see people purchasing like raw land, for instance, thinking, oh, this will be cheaper because it's cheaper, right? Not
Yeah.
thinking I'm gonna have to spend all the money to clear this. And then it's gonna be a bare minimum of a year if you know what you're doing before there's really gonna even be any grass on it. So people try to like save some money on some different things without really thinking about, you know, what uh, what all the costs are really going to be. Do you need additional buildings on the property? You want chickens? Is there a chicken coop? If not, do you know how much that's going to cost? If you want your chickens to actually live, are you going to put either some sort of guardian animal or a secure chicken run? What's that going to cost? Either of those. Like they both cost money. One of
Right.
them continues to cost money because you got to feed the dog. And the other one is an upfront cost, but there's a definite cost there. Um, if you have animals, there's maintenance on animals. And it varies depending on the animal, but you might have, the occasional vet visit. Um, you got to feed them, you got to water them. I mean, my water bill is probably double what someone, in town pays
Sure.
because my cows go through 100 gallons of water a day. Like,
Wow.
Yep.
and it's more in they go through darn near 200 in the summer. So, I mean, there's costs there.
Yep.
Man,
And
you and I need to talk about like setting up a pump in your spring with or in your stream with a
Right.
solar panel or something to
yeah,
reduce that cost.
it is a year-round creek, but unfortunately, the flow in the summer gets real low. It's great now; it's roaring right now, but in the summer when I need it the most, it's definitely low. My thought was to get like a nice 2,500 gallon tank and just collect water off the roof of my barn.
Sure.
And the I think the I think the capturable area on that barn is probably over 2,000 square feet. So
Oh,
it's a
that's a
lot of
lot of water.
it's
Yeah,
a
you
lot
can
of
do a
water.
lot with that.
Yeah, so that was an idea, just do some basic filtration and then, there's no contamination over there because it's metal, so there's no shingle, granulars, or anything to worry about. The only tree we got over there is hackberries. So, but they're already probably drinking hackberry juice that gets into their water.
Right.
So that's been an idea, but I've got to convince the well driller that I actually want a well and get them out here to put one in. We had a well apparently in the 80s. Um, there was actually 3 wells on our property, as I understand. There was a non-potable well that they used for the pigs over by our silo, and as I understand it, based on scuttlebutt around here, because unfortunately most of the people that lived in this area back at that time are no longer alive.
Mm,
But what I understand is it was like a 40 or 50 foot well over there, which is real shallow.
it's very
And
shallow.
yeah, and so that was not potable. And then they had another well that it had to have been right off of our kitchen. It couldn't have been far off. I don't know how far, but it couldn't have been very far because we have a cistern under our kitchen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so we have some old, well equipment, but we don't know where the well head was. And I talked to a well driller about it, and he's like, well, I mean, it's like 40 years now. Like, you're going to have to dig a new one. And so I know that there's water over there. The question is, how deep is it?
Sure.
Is it 100 feet? Is it 500 feet? Is it 1,000? So it's one of those, like, I'm 95% certain that it'll hit a fairly decent well, like water table over there. I just don't know how much I'm going to have to spend. So that would be my actual goal, is to do that, because, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to the water issues all over Middle Tennessee, but we're having supply problems.
Van Buren County is bad.
Yeah. So, Murray County, they want to put in a dam because there's not enough water. And Marshall County, where I live, like, they want to, they were spending tens of millions of dollars putting in a treatment plant. But, that summer, not last summer, but the summer before, when we had that really bad drought, like, it was standing water in Duck River. My wife and daughter went tubing down the river, and they had to get out and walk a couple of times.
Gosh.
Wow.
And that's the primary water source for 100,000 people.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
No.
Yeah, I've noticed something really odd, and I don't know if there's any connection, but there's a lot of the lakes around here, like behind Center Hill Dam, and pretty much every lake I drive past in Tennessee appears to be like 10, 15 feet down from its normal height.
Yeah, not even its high water mark, but it's like normal watermark.
Right. And they've all been that way for basically since the middle of COVID, so 4 years ago.
Right.
And it was really odd to me because it's like all of a sudden all these lakes are running low way capacity. Down.
Yeah.
And why? Like I've not gotten any.
We're not getting any less rain.
So. Yeah, no, we're not getting less rain.
Why are you dumping it?
Right. Yeah, they have to be. The only way to do that is if they're managing it in such a way that they're draining it at that level.
Mm-hmm.
Or using extra power or something like that. But that none of that really quite makes sense. So, anyways, one of those weird things I noticed is that we're not getting less rain, but our lakes are a lot more shallow.
Unfortunately, and people consider this something political to say, but unfortunately, there's not the will to continue to build more reservoirs here. And it's silly. It's like we get 50, 60 inches of rain a year, and people want to live here. We should be damming up and making more reservoirs, because what's happening to all that water, it's just flowing down the rivers, into the Tennessee River, into the Ohio River, into the Mississippi, and into the Gulf. That's where it's all going. We're wasting all this fresh water that could be captured and used, because, why? Because some people don't like the idea of us putting dams in.
And we could silly. Be using our property so much more thoughtfully too, right? Mm-hmm. We could be capturing that water on the property. There's a property I've been working. So property I've been working on that's 6 acres, and there's only 3 acres that we've done much of anything with. And there's a hand dug well on the property, and that well is about 20 feet deep, and it pretty much always runs dry in the summer. And since we've started doing things like more careful water management, improving the soil, putting in some swales, that well, I think, is on average about 4 feet higher in water table than.
Wow.
So it seems like it would just dissipate into other areas, but the well is directly downhill from where we're getting all this capture. So yeah, I mean, I prefer to be more on the micro scale of doing it on your homestead, on your land. But it does. I think we're just letting so much of this water rush off, take with topsoil, take with pollutants, and dump them all into the Gulf of whatever it is now.
Right.
Yeah, I actually have a spot on my property. It was interesting. I was looking at the federal maps, the GIS system,
Mhm.
and it's always fun to look at that. And they claim that I have a pond on my property. And I looked at where they say I have a pond, and technically it is a seasonal pond.
Hmm.
So through a lot of the winter, we hear the frogs back there, and we actually don't have to give the cows much water because apparently they like flavored water better. I don't
Ew.
understand it. Um, so later this year, like in spring, like it's going to be real wet over there, and it's kind of like a little pond. So it's already on the federal map. It's a pond. I imagine at some point it was probably an actual pond, and so we want to get someone out to excavate it for us
Nice.
and see if we can turn it into a year-round pond. Um, it's the lowest part of our property, and so all the water from our entire property drains over there, and so it makes a lot of sense that we could use it as a pond if we dig it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, So, and then I would make an overflow over there because we've had this issue twice where we had rain so bad that our field actually flooded.
Mm.
And it flooded. Basically, what happened is all the grass clippings from our bush hogging year over year would get picked up, and then it would flow towards the back fence. And we got a field fence back there. And the grass clippings would get caught in the field fence. And then the water level would rise and rise and rise until eventually the water won and the fence
Yep.
lost. And then the water drained out because that's where the creek is over there. The water drained down to the creek. And I put in a gate over there, and the debris was bad enough that even the gate got covered.
Oh man.
It was pretty rough. But if I put in a pond over there, I could have some sort of like smart overflow to try to keep that sort of thing from happening again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can push the water around your property in all kinds of really cool ways that keep it there longer,
Right.
reduce the debris movement, and then dump the water where you want it so then it's not pushing through the fence.
Yeah, we unfortunately we just get when we've only had that happen twice. Most of the time the water moves, fairly smartly. I mean, you can see it, like it's mush out there right now because it's everything melted and now it's raining.
That's
But
fairly low lying, isn't it?
yeah, that back section, don't like anyone who wanted to build back there would not be happy. Like it's not good. Like the front of our property near the road is great. Like never have any trouble because it all flows down here and then flows further down into the creek. We have had a couple of times where the creek has overflowed and it's actually flooded across the road, but that's at the far end of our property. It doesn't affect us at all. But our neighbor's property, he's got this spot where he's got a seasonal pond, and it actually flows over the road onto our property every once in a while. And the county came out and they dug out the culverts over there, and it hasn't been as much of an issue now because it flows down along there. But yeah, we could talk about water management all day. Tennessee, it's so important. Like if you're coming from a drier state, like you just don't understand how important it is to know how the water's moving and to make sure that you have a way to manage that, you know, with a way that makes sense with your structures and the goals for your property.
Yep.
So
Well, and Anthony, you know this because we work together periodically, but as a home inspector, I'd say 90 to 95% of homes that I see have negative grade, meaning the yard is
Right.
sloped at the house.
Yeah.
At least
95, I'm pretty sure it's 99.
99.
I don't think I've seen a single property that hasn't had negative grade. And the
Yeah,
worst
well,
ones are the new ones.
Yeah, you're working
Yes.
well, yeah, you're right. The worst ones often are the new ones because somebody might have done something to try to fix it later on. Which is
Like my house.
usually
I'm up on top of a knoll. It rolls
Yep.
every direction away from my house.
Even the best builder, if they're finishing their house in summer, you're gonna have problems
Mhm.
come spring, come
Mhm.
winter, come spring, because they're trying to pack it when it's dry.
Oh yeah. Right.
And the second it gets wet, guess what? You're dropping 6 inches or a foot or more because of its repacking. So
Right.
a new house, I tell people when they're looking at buying a new house, is you're almost certainly going to have to regrade it within a year or two.
Yep.
Which, so long as you know that, it's not
Yeah.
crazy expensive. You can even do it yourself. Just get a shovel and get out there. Like, it's not a huge deal, but you are going to have to do it.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I regraded my yard in a couple different ways by hand over the years, just to increase water flow away from the home because it was becoming an issue.
Yeah. I
Doesn't
got to
have to be
regrade my
straightforward.
house every time I let the chickens out. Destructive little pieces of crap. We actually, what's funny, since we're on, we're talking about homestead stuff, we actually got rid of a lot of our chickens. I think we're in the late stage chicken phase. We're down to
The
like
cycles, right?
yeah, we're in the cycle. So we love our cows, and I swear our cow herd keeps growing. It's ridiculous. I think we have like 10 now, and we only have 11 acres. But we have very fertile land. You take a shovel and you dig like 3 feet down, you still got black as black dirt can be. Like
Ooh.
everything grows really, really good. Like I said, it's been a farm for 100 years. But we just the chickens are just so destructive, and you're so hit or miss on getting eggs in the winter, and you're
Sure.
still feeding them. And so, their eggs are amazing. We really like having the chickens, but we just decided to just cut them down, I think, to about, I think we have 7 now. So a lot more manageable.
Sure.
Yep.
No, it's
Yeah,
good. It's
we've started adding ducks, which
Yeah, and
doesn't necessarily help.
my wife loves ducks. And the thing about ducks is they're a crazy messy animal. Don't get me wrong, they're very
Mhm.
messy, but they don't destroy my wife's flower bed.
right.
They don't cause issues in the garden. They're not eating the tomatoes. They're not dirt bathing on the side of the house, creating a spot for water to pool. Like, they're not getting up on the porch and pooping all over the place. Like, there's so many things that the chickens do where we're like, we just want to keep you locked up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate to do that because I want you to run around and eat all the wood ticks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they have their place for sure.
Yeah.
I like having. Oh, go ahead.
We're letting the ducks roam around, and they seem to do fairly good at keeping the insect population down.
Yeah.
Now,
they're
if I
pretty
can
good at that.
find something that'll eat the Brazilian fire ants, maybe I need to import a Brazilian anteater or something.
Maybe. Yeah, the fire ants are the one thing where I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with using just a tiny bit of 7 dust. Just
Molten aluminum. Just pour molten
There you
aluminum
go.
right down there.
Because
That's
we
a
all
beautiful
have that sitting around with
Oh.
a forge to melt it down, right?
Okay, I'm weird.
Yeah.
So our issue is, like, obviously, like many bugs and animals and stuff, they like your loose soil, and
Yeah.
they love wood chips and love things that are covered. So it's a constant struggle year after year in the greenhouse and in the garden. Like, they always move in everywhere, and you don't want to be using any toxic chemicals in there. So we've always just done boiling water, which works okay, but it's not perfect, and it's a constant thing. Last year, fire ants were really bad this last summer. They were so bad. I don't know why, but they were horrible. But yeah, I don't know. That's the one bug, animal, whatever, that, like, if I could just get rid of one.
Well, Rocky Pines are Vic.
Cornstarch.
It says, yeah, baking soda and cornstarch for fire ants.
I wish I only had 4 mounds. I have 4 mounds per acre.
4
Actually,
mounds per acre. Oh, wow.
probably-
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that. What's funny is, like, any areas that you regularly mow, I mean, they don't go in there, generally speaking. But last year seemed to be different. Like, they just were popping up everywhere. You'd mow them down and they'd pop up again. You mow them down, pop up again. It's like, what the heck?
One thing you can do as well is, so many insects are boron or borax will kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Ants, it won't on contact, like, like it does with termites and other things, but they'll actually eat it. So as long as there's enough sugar, so you can use hot water, you can mix borax and sugar together. And borax is a natural mineral. It's not actually, I mean, If you
Isn't
look
it
it up,
just
there's
it's just a salt, isn't it? I think it's a form of a salt.
it might be it's boron with a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of other minerals mixed in with it, but it's naturally mined here in the US. So borax it's a totally natural compound. Um, I don't know how much I want to say, but there are people in the natural health realm who use it internally.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's you go online and look and you'll be told you'll die if you touch the stuff, but in my opinion, it's very safe as far as using around your garden, things
Hmm.
like that. So, anyways, you can use hot water, borax, um, and a bunch of sugar and mix them together, and you get this kind of goopy liquid. And you can put that in a can next to the anthill, and if they eat it, they'll take it back to their uh,
Ah.
take it back inside and feed it to their queen and things.
I tried that last year with we had some ants that got
Mm-hmm.
in the house. There wasn't fire ants, it was just regular ants. And I tried that and I thought that it had worked because they
Oh.
disappeared for a bit, but
Oh.
apparently it didn't kill the mound. Um, and with ants in the house, like it was really bad. Like it was hundreds and hundreds of ants. I
Yeah.
ended up having a pest control guy out just to fix that specific problem. But maybe
Yeah.
I don't think I did hot water. I'll try it again with hot water, see if that works better. Because I just did borax with just powdered sugar, just crappy powdered sugar.
Yeah, you got to get it basically an amalgamation of all of it, so it's kind of a
Hmm.
goo.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, man, fire ants, they're rough.
Yeah, some people use orange oil, but
It's
it seems to,
expensive.
it's expensive and it doesn't seem to be especially helpful. So it's there's a lot of different opinions out there. I'm interested in trying out Vic's solution of baking soda and cornstarch.
I'll try that.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I
not
have
going to hurt
both of
anything,
those.
right?
And they're both very cheap. I
Mhm.
like cheap because
Cheap is
I
good.
have a lot of fire ants.
Yep.
I can't do an expensive fire ant thing because I have too many of them. We actually what we were doing for we haven't done this for a year or two. Um, we would take our big pot that we use for dunking our chickens when we butcher them, and we'd fill that with water, put it on the propane heater, and just boil water right in the garden, and then you just scoop it out,
Pour it
dump
on.
it on the things. It works. It's annoying to set up, but it works pretty good. You just have to plan to be out there for a while because it takes a little bit for I don't know how many gallons that is, but it's a lot of gallons of water. I think it's like 112 quarts or no, that can't be right. I don't know. It's a big pot. I can stick turkeys in the thing.
Big
Nice.
pot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big pot.
Have you had to deal with the ground hornets at all?
No, no, nothing like that. Just
Buggers.
we get a lot of the dirt daubers, which I don't mind them. I mean, they make a mess, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
they're not aggressive. We get the red wasps, which
Yeah.
they don't seem that bad. They're aggressive, but I honestly think their sting's not as bad.
Mhm.
As the yellow ones. The
Mhm.
yellow wasps, the yellow jackets, I feel like they're the worst. We don't get a ton of them. We mostly get the red ones.
The black and red ones, if you've ever gotten stung by those, in my opinion, are the worst.
Yeah.
Because they'll actually make whatever tissue they hit hard.
Hmm.
So you'll get like it'll swell
Big
up and get
raised up welts and
yeah, but like your whole arm, it's a venom of some sort, and it'll actually
Mhm.
turn your arm muscle hard
Yeah,
or wherever they sting you.
the wasps really like our house for some reason. It's a full-time job keeping up with them every year.
I was in a garden last summer watching one of those yellow or not yellow, red wasps. And it came along and there was a um, worm I was about to pick up, like a caterpillar. There was a issue in my garden. I was about to pick it up and I see this red wasp come in, grab the thing, pick it up, and take it. I'm like, oh, these guys have a really cool purpose. They actually
Wow.
eat those pests.
They can have a purpose near the garden, just not around my house.
Right.
We get a lot of bumblebees, and our neighbor who's got over 330 acres or something, he has tons of wild bees, like tons and tons. And so they'll come over and we just have swarms and swarms of bees all over my wife's flowers
Awesome.
every year. So I'm sure they're making some very delicious honey somewhere on his property.
Nice.
But they're great pollinators. I don't think they're probably doing much about the bad bugs, though.
No, probably not.
I'm sure. We tried to capture a hive. We did capture a hive, one of the swarms, one year, but it was too small to survive. But I bet you they're really good bees because they're really acclimated to this area now. As I understand it, the guy who owned our property back in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, he was a bee farmer. And he apparently had a lot of hives, and they would swarm and go into the woods, of course. And so we've got like bees that have been around here for probably 60 years.
Wow.
Like, talk about well acclimated to an area.
Mhm.
So we'd like to try to capture our swarm at some point. We've got everything set up. We just need a new bee capture box, because I changed the frames I got. I bought a different hive, and I need different frames for them. But yeah.
Do you know Adam Martin from beekept.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We've my daughter and wife took his bee class many moons ago. So I have a whole bunch of bee books. I think they're all back there somewhere. I don't know. There was this guy who, yeah, there it is, Keeping Bees. There's this guy who he wrote a book, and we ended up buying his book, and he uses a slightly different type of hive. I can't remember the name of it. And that was the hive I ended up buying, and it's a little bit different than what a lot of people use. But based on my research of this, which I did this a while ago, it seemed like a really good option. So
is it a top bar? Or yeah, is that what they're called?
I can't remember the name of it. It's not the normal method where people like can stack them. This one's not meant to be stacked.
That's the Langstrop or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that sounds right. And I can't remember exactly why I like that, but there was some reasons why it seemed like a slightly better option. I believe it's the predominant European way to do it, if I remember correctly, whereas the Americans primarily use the other way. But since I have no intention of ever buying a queen bee and only ever intend to capture wild swarms, it seemed like something that was really bee friendly would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know quite enough about the subject to really speak too intelligently on it. I just remember all the research that I did. This guy was very convincing. And he's been a beekeeper like for 40 years or something. He's wrote multiple books and all kinds
the
of
hives
stuff.
we're used to and the way that people are told to manage them, I think, is problematic. It's not how bees operate.
And that was part of the reason why I kind of looked for an opinion that was a little bit different than what the common consensus in the United States was, because how many stories have we read about our collapsing bee population?
Right.
And I'm like, well, if what everyone around here is doing is wrong, maybe we should do something different. And so that was that was part of my thinking on why don't I'll give Europeans crap for a lot of stuff, but they've been keeping bees for thousands of years. So there's probably some reason that they're using that method. And as I understand it, their bees are probably doing pretty good over there. I don't hear about them having bee dying off populations, so there's probably something to that.
Yeah. Well, we've got some other issues with colony collapse disorder that I think there's a lot of factors in it that everybody goes, oh, there's we've found the issue, and it's
it's this. I'm like, it's lots.
No.
I'm sure that I wouldn't be surprised if there's genetic decay problems because people are all buying their queen bees.
Sure.
And then they replace them after a year. There's no chance for them to like really acclimate to your area.
No, you're right. So I believe they use some form of effectively artificial insemination for the queens. And the way that it would happen in nature is the new queen flies out of the nest or the hive, and the strongest drone bee catches her.
Mhm.
And so it's a very different process, and basically it eliminates the weak of the brood,
Right.
and they're completely upending that. And so yeah, getting a wild hive or getting a hive from somebody like Adam Martin, who has actually let the bees do their thing the way they do it, um, and he's done that over generations of these bees, you've got much stronger bees. And so that's why I mentioned him is he I was at, I think, Back to the Land Festival, and I'm just talking to people on site there. I had a booth and things, and I start just kind of hearing little bits of somebody talking. They're talking about bees, and it's Adam up on stage, um and I can hear him saying all the things that I had thought were wrong with beekeeping, and saying, yeah, you don't have to do it the way they tell you to do it. Here's how you get around that thing. So yeah, there's a lot we're doing wrong, and it's causing damage to our systems.
Yeah, well, and some of the stuff that I read is like, so I deep dived onto this guy's website, the place that I bought the hive, and I bought his book, and I bought all this different stuff from him, all the equipment. And their whole thing is like, you want to disturb the bees as little as possible. Like
Mm.
I think it was twice a year is what they recommended. Like very little. Basically you check on them once, and then you like get honey once, and that's like it.
Yep.
And so it just, his whole process seemed very different, and that kind of aligns with what we like to do as far as our animal husbandry goes. My wife's like, "Oh my gosh, the cow's having a baby, do we need to do something?" I was like, "Hey, let's let nature take its course here, okay? These cows have been bred over hundreds, maybe thousands of years to give birth without any trouble. Like, let's give
Mhm.
them a chance to do it, you know? But then you also need to be paying attention. We had a cow give birth just recently, and she had mastitis immediately.
Mm.
She had
Aw.
mastitis, and she wouldn't let her calf feed. And we were paying attention, and this was literally like Christmas Eve morning or something like
Of
that.
course.
Of course, yeah. Thankfully, it was warm out, not raining. Um, and so we were paying attention, and it was clear that she wasn't feeding. And we ended up through a lot of effort coaxing her over to our squeeze chute, which thank God we have a squeeze chute now, and we put her in the squeeze chute and opened up the side and basically let the baby nurse while we had her
Yep.
secured, because she wasn't going to let him, or
Mm.
let her. And after, and here's the crazy thing about nature. If you were to talk to a vet or whatever, and you're like, how do we take care of mastitis? Like, they'd have this whole protocol on how to take care of it. Guess what? Baby fed
Let her nurse. Yeah.
all the teats, and mastitis was gone. Like
Mhm.
in like a day or two, was gone. So that's nature taking care of it. It didn't hurt the baby at all. Totally fine. So we we had her in the squeeze chute for about an hour, and then we let her out, and then we just kind of kept them in an enclosed area for a bit, and it was totally fine. So I'm very big on the minimal intervention, as minimal as we need to be, because nature needs to have a chance to work its magic.
Yeah, Greg Judy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's kind of a pioneer in the rotational grazing realm. And he's this kind of older, cranky guy who's hilarious to listen to. But he basically he's got this giant flock of sheep at this point that he grazes on other people's property, and he only puts up one strand of electric wire. And how he got there was basically every single sheep that jumped once he had enough sheep, every sheep that would jump the wire would be dinner. And it didn't matter the size. It didn't matter if they were still a little small or whatever else. Like, that was his rule of thumb. And he basically created a herd that wouldn't do that. And they're also, if they had some type of health issue, he'd take them out of their misery if there's a problem bad enough for that. But otherwise, they're not allowed to breed. They just become meat. And so he's bred out a stock of sheep that is extremely resilient and resistant, especially where he's at, and easy to manage.
He's not the guy in Missouri, is he?
He might be. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure
Because
where he's at.
my wife was telling me about this guy out, and I'm pretty sure he was in Missouri, who bred his sheep to be parasite resistant.
Yeah, they are. So it may be the same person. It could be somebody else, but
I'm
yeah.
sure. I'm sure more than one person's doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like we don't let animals fail,
Right.
and call them like
Anything really. We intercede in gardening and animals and
uh,
a lot of systems that we shouldn't.
yeah. And I mean there's a fine line between managing something like
Right.
your animal husbandry and getting in the way of what's going to make your herd or your flock stronger over time. Because like we've had cannibal chickens. Like we don't
Mm,
want cannibal chickens in
right.
our flock. They go bye-bye.
Hmm.
Mhm.
We don't want egg-eating chickens in our flock. Guess what? They're going to teach it to other people, so they go bye-bye.
Yep.
Like, there's things that you've got to manage, of course, and get those out. And, like, yeah, fence breaking cows. If you got cows that are consistently breaking fences, like they need to go to the freezer.
Yep. Yeah, we had a rooster that we named Taco as a threat because the threat was if he ever goes after one of my girls, he'll become a taco.
El
Mm.
Polo
And
Loco.
yep. And he never did. He was actually really great as far as friendliness, but we figured out that he was, how roosters will like guide the hens to food. They'll bagawk and tell them where food is. Well, he was doing that, but for eggs. So he'd go over and crack an egg open and call
Oh,
them all over. And so we couldn't figure out what was happening to our eggs for the longest time.
yeah,
So
that'd do it.
yeah, he went in the freezer and then he became an enchilada, which I suppose is close enough to a taco that
That's good.
it doesn't matter.
We had to set up. We got a trail cam. We put it in the chicken coop to catch the egg eaters,
It's
and
not a
then
bad idea.
yeah,
Smart.
it worked out really well, and it was fairly hilarious actually because chickens are so stupid. We have one of those, or we had. Well, no, we still have one of those rollaway egg boxes.
Mm.
Um, so you can mount it where you can get to the eggs from the outside. You just
Hmm.
flip it open, and it's set up in such a way that it slopes down. But it's really nice. It has like this little pad in there and all this stuff, and it's got these little flaps so they have some privacy, and they seem to really like it. But in order to have a proper view to see who was getting the eggs, because they were eating the eggs while they were in the rollaway spot.
Oh.
One of them figured out how to stick their neck down in there and peck at the eggs until they broke, and then they'd go and they'd eat the parts that came out. So we were getting these eggs with this tiny little hole in it,
Right.
and then all the innards were gone. And so what I did was the little flap side, flipped them up on top, and I taped them on. Um, well, apparently the tape didn't stick, probably because the top was filled with poop, and one of them fell down, and this one chicken tried to like walk through where it was taped. So there was two flaps, and there was a little hole in it, and she got stuck and couldn't get out, and she was like, ah! It was so funny. She figured it out. It didn't take her long to get out, but
Good.
they're hilarious. So we did end up we narrowed it down based on the video to like 3 chickens. We took the 3 chickens out. We stuck them in a different area where they couldn't interact. And when we discovered that there was no eggs being eaten, we figured that we had the right culprits.
Nice.
So yeah, they're chickens, man. They're naughty sometimes.
Well, and you brought up trail cams. I'm actually a huge fan because you don't really have any privacy concerns with trail cams because it's just staying on the SD card. But a lot of them now have time lapse options.
Mm.
So you can stick one up and have it take, anywhere from 1 to 100 pictures a day, however many you want.
Right. Whatever
But
interval you set. Yeah.
yeah, but you can, time lapse your garden over a summer or
Oh, that'd be super cool.
time lapse your orchard
Watch it.
or yeah, some project that you're working on that's a little bigger that's going to take a few weeks or whatever. You can have a time lapse of it with very inexpensively. You can pick these cameras up for under $40.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've gotten so affordable. It's
Mhm.
crazy. The one I got is like waterproof. The battery doesn't seem to last long, but that might be because I'm using rechargeable batteries.
Mm.
They don't seem to, the voltage being lower seems to wear them out faster. So I don't know, but it's It's pretty nice. I mean, it has really good night vision too for
Mhm.
like such a
Yeah.
cheap trail cam.
Right.
Well, and you can get them with Wi-Fi. So if you want to, like, they don't connect to your Wi-Fi network, but if you want to, you can sit remotely and pull pictures off of them. So they're great for security cameras.
Hmm.
Um, or you just want to watch wildlife or whatever. But they've got so many uses, and they really are quite good. They're high quality, high megapixel images.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't beat them up, they'll probably last a very long time too.
Yeah, yeah. They're like dumb technology. They're
They
just
are.
they're the
Mhm.
stuff you wanted technology to be, but then it ended up not being.
You know, it's funny because like I remember my very first digital camera was, gosh, like 2 megapixels or something.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
pretty sure it was $150 or $200.
Mhm.
You know, now you can go and get a wireless trail cam for $50,
Yep.
Right.
and it will take pictures at night, which my camera couldn't.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. They are very useful.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit more back on topic. I have one more question. Jared might have some others.
Mm.
But I was just wondering what you think, if I were to press you on what you think the biggest mistake that people who are looking for a homestead make, what do you think it would be?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I can think of a few things, you know, not just any one thing, because nothing's ever as simple as being just one thing. But you know, and we've touched on a bunch of these, but one of them would be, you know, buying land that's too far away from major amenities that you need. Like it's super attractive to be like, hey, I want to go and buy in, you know, Wayne County. I like Wayne County. Wayne County has no codes. You can do literally whatever you want there. You call up Wayne County, you call up the Wayne County people and be like, so can I do this on my property? And they're like, whatever, no big
Why are
deal.
you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
why
Just go kill
literally,
it.
why are you talking to me? Just do whatever you want. And you know, but you're far from stuff. And
Sure.
maybe you're okay with that. Like that's great. Like, but you got to think about, you know, how far is too far or how close is too close to various things, you know, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. You know,
Yeah.
some people don't think about where the sun is. Ryan touched on this person who bought a north-facing slope property. They don't think about where the sun is. You know, we need sun for everything. You know, I've got the front of my house faces the north. The ice on my sidewalk didn't melt until today um, because it never gets any sun.
Sure.
So, you know, I'm not going to be growing a garden right there. So, you know, but my land's relatively flat. I don't have to worry too much about north facing slope. But if you're buying a more hilly property, which that's Middle Tennessee or
Hmm.
East Tennessee, even, you got to think about that. Making sure the property doesn't have any regulations that are going to, or restrictions that are going to get in the way of what you want to do. Like that's something that's really important to think about, like to be looking at any deeded restrictions. You know, obviously most people who are looking to get some land aren't going to end up in an HOA, but there may be subdivision or deeded restrictions. You might be buying in a municipality that has some sort of restrictions outside of like maybe like um, in Middle Tennessee, at least outside of like Davidson County, you're generally going to be fairly good as far as county stuff goes. But if you're in city limits, you know, anything could happen.
Yeah.
And
Um,
that's something I see come up in, like Facebook groups about buying homesteads, and is how do I know if this area has restrictions, or and it's like it's kind of hard to know and it's kind of hard to find. And that's where dealing with somebody like you who, your area pretty well, the counties pretty well. You might not know every single piece of property right off the bat, but you know the tools to find that information.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I
yeah.
mean, we always look for that. And I mean, we always get title searches, which, you know, it gives all the possible title history on a property. And we've occasionally run into some things that um, we never would have caught up front, you know, because it was
Mm-hmm.
buried somewhere in the title.
Oh.
And examples are like there wasn't mineral rights on a property, and or
Ooh.
one property they didn't have timber rights to the property. Someone else owned the timber rights. And there's ways to address these things. Like these aren't insurmountable obstacles, but you need to know about
Sure.
Right.
them.
Yeah, you don't want somebody coming on and clear cutting your property
Right.
because they had rights to.
And it's not, I mean, that sort of thing doesn't generally happen very often, because what's those were usually signed away like a long time ago, and
Mhm.
regulations and rules have changed, and EPA has done stuff. And so, someone, if you don't have your timber rights, mostly what it's going to do is stop you from harvesting timber. It's not very likely that they're going to come in and harvest timber. Like it could
Sure.
happen, but they have to do it in a way that's friendly to your land, and a lot of times it's just not worth the effort for them to do it. And so it's not usually super difficult to get those sorts of rights back. Mineral rights is in Middle Tennessee, like generally speaking, the only thing you're going to run across is like phosphorus, and they're not
Yep.
really mining that here anyway.
Mm.
So the mineral rights in Middle Tennessee is not a big deal, but it is a much bigger deal further east, because they do have gas
Mm.
drilling out there.
Sure.
And obviously it's a huge thing in Texas with
Yeah,
oil
right.
and stuff. So certainly something to think about.
Well, to hit on that just a little bit, something I've seen in my area, and honestly, I consider it a bit of a scam, and there's more reason for believing that. But there's a bunch of people who are buying properties, and they'll buy the neighboring property and a property at the same time, and they'll create deeded access for septic systems so they can divide land they otherwise couldn't, then resell the house, but not, they might disclose that there's, deeded access for a septic
Oh.
system for a new house, but they kind of hide it. And if your real estate agent isn't, careful enough about looking at the documents, you may have somebody digging in your backyard, a few months down the road.
Sure.
I've run into that a couple times. So it's not crazy common, but it does pop up for sure.
It's actually in my area specifically. So Smith County, Trousdale County.
That doesn't surprise me, because it's rockier over there. So
Right.
it's going to be harder to find those sites. So when you can find a spot, you want to use it.
Yeah, but I've seen it pop up. One of my neighbors had it happen. I know several other people who've, thought they were buying this property that they could use all of, and a huge chunk of it was actually designated for somebody else's septic system, and now they can't touch it.
Yeah, I sold a property, and the person who bought it, their septic was on the neighbor's land, and the neighbor, I don't know how long he'd owned the property, but forever. I think he was a little irked by it, because he couldn't ever do anything with that. Like his
Sure.
cows could graze over it, but that
Yeah.
was about it,
Right.
And their entire septic was on his property. Like,
Yeah.
and here's some land that I can never really do much with. So it's definitely something to think about. Like I said, I don't see it a ton in Middle Tennessee. It does pop up occasionally. I don't see it a ton. But I could definitely see it being more common in Eastern Tennessee for sure,
Yep.
just because of the topography.
So we've got a question for you from the audience here. Are there any areas in Middle Tennessee to steer away from?
I would stay out of Davidson County personally.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if they up taxes another 50% in the next 5 years. Doubling it in the last 5 was not enough. It's just, unfortunately, it's a mismanaged county.
Yeah.
It's very sad. They have a lot of good things going for them, but I mean, just this whole debacle with NES. I was talking to a lady who owns some rentals in Davidson right now, and her rentals don't have power still.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
this long later, and she shared that they're running into issues with the permitting, because the city won't let them fix their meters unless they get it inspected, And the codes inspectors are always backed up, but they're especially backed up now.
Yes.
And they won't let the power company hook up the power until the codes have inspected it. Well, here's the thing. They require that a licensed electrician fixes the meter anyway. And
Mhm.
so if you can get a licensed electrician who's insured and who's putting their license on the line saying, hey, this is good, willing to write off on the permit, surely
Right.
you can waive the inspection until like you get down to it later down the road, and you can just tell the electrician, well, if we flag anything, you got to come back and fix it. I don't. There seems like there could be better ways to do it, but I don't know. Just crazy mismanagement in my mind. But it's Davidson County. Just because it's a metropolitan county, you're gonna have a lot of restrictions and issues. Your taxes are gonna be a lot higher. I mean, there are actually like decent land properties for sale there in certain areas, but it's just, I just think that it would not be a great long-term purchase if you're looking to do homesteading. And then the only other spot that I would say to really stay away from is Western Murray County, because that's where the huge Monsanto site was.
Oh,
And
yes.
so they set up there eons ago, and they were doing, scuttlebutt is that they were doing chemical warfare stuff from World War II and the Cold War. And they basically, the EPA was formed, and Monsanto was just like, here, Tennessee, you can have this land. We don't want anything to do with it. And so Tennessee has been supposedly cleaning it up, and then they ended up saying that a little bit of the land, a fair amount of the land actually, was safe for residential use now, and so some of it's on the market. So yeah, there's a bunch of land over there. If you see anything on the map and it says trailing pond number 3, you want to stay away from those things. Or there's a Monsanto lake over there actually.
Yes.
Yeah. So that whole section is just, it's a bit concerning to me, just because we don't know exactly what went on there. I can't 100% blame Monsanto for everything because, the government gave them contracts and said, hey, make us like mustard gas over here. Well, of course they're going to make it. The government said do it,
Right.
like, but on the flip side, like they completely absolved themselves of any responsibility in cleaning it up, which is pretty terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the federal government asking for it, and now it's the state government having to, and local government
Yes.
having to clean it up.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're cleaning up. The crazy thing is, I don't know if you've ever seen any pictures of the land over there. It is the most beautiful land ever. It looks like nature untouched because it's been 45 years, 50 years for nature to reclaim it, and it looks it. I mean, if you ever want an idea of what nature will look like after 45 years of nobody doing anything with it, just look over there. And so I feel like it's I don't know how much they're really disclosing what went on and everything. I've heard that they're doing tests and stuff, and so maybe, you could become comfortable with it. But most people, when I talk to them about it, it's not something that they would want to take on.
Yeah, nobody's going to trust that they've run, what they do, they run the wrong test and go, look, it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
this thing that wasn't even there in the first place isn't there.
You dig a well and you hit some underground cache of toxic chemicals that they decided to bury. I mean, that could happen.
Yes.
Or it just would be really concerning to me, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, who knows if they had injection wells?
I'm sure that they did. They probably did. They're like, we need to get rid of this stuff. We can't dump it on the ground, so let's put it in a hole.
Yep. Yeah, I generally say avoid any of the major metropolitan areas. So Knoxville, Chattanooga, the counties that are those, and generally speaking, even the counties that directly surround or touch those are generally going to have a lot more manipulation by, like developers and things like that. So
one that I just found. So I don't work over in Knoxville. Okay, so I'm not on the the up about all the stuff to worry about over there. But I did hear that you don't want to be too close to the Oak Ridge facility because apparently the background radiation from all the stuff that they did there um, actually spreads out pretty far.
Mhm.
I think I read something like it's a noticeable increase out to like 50 miles,
Wow.
Oh,
which is huge.
Well, and
And
it is.
they're partnering with CERN, so
Yes.
where's my
who
tinfoil
knows
hat?
what they're doing? Yeah.
I thought that was only for their computer, the AI computer system, wasn't it?
I maybe I
Okay,
don't
fair
know,
enough.
but anybody partnering with CERN, you gotta be a little bit
Keep an eye on them.
suspicious of.
Isn't it Oak Ridge where they're going to test out the SMRs? I thought it was over there somewhere.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
I think it was Oak Ridge. They were going to buy like the first one or two, so that could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where are we at? Got off on a tangent.
No, that's okay.
Good,
I think we kind of got through a lot of it. The finances part, that's one of those things where I generally just tell people go talk with Anthony. He's got
Yep.
lenders he works with that are good. You don't need to know every in and out because most of it's going to go. Eyes are going to glaze over, right? We'll lose the few viewers we have at the moment.
There's a lot of options out
So
there. We'll just say
yeah,
that.
there's lots of options. Anthony's got a good handle on that, and the people he works with can get you even more information where you need it.
One mistake that I'll mention, and this will sound self-serving, and it is and it isn't at the same time. So if you remember what I said about why I got into real estate, it was because I felt like our agent, despite being a very nice person, didn't really know what was going on, what they were doing. Okay. I'm not going to trash talk any other real estate agents. Everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. I do not run across very many real estate agents who actually understand land. So if
Mhm.
you're looking to buy acreage, either to build on or to homestead or whatever, it's very important to hire a real estate agent who actually has experience in that. There
Yep.
are agents out there who their land experience is simply, development. And while that's better than maybe, your Joe Schmo agent, like that's still not quite the same as someone who's got a mind for, what makes sense from like a homesteading farming sort of
Sure.
perspective. And so hiring the wrong real estate agent, you could end up buying a property not knowing what you don't know,
Mm.
and then running into issues down the road. So trying to get connected with an agent who, at the bare minimum understands it, but better, case would be they're living it to at least some extent, really can be very helpful.
Now, if people are looking in Tennessee, maybe in an area, let's say Crossville, where you don't work, do you have a bit of a network of people that you work with or other agents that you tend to refer to that might be at least a little bit more in the realm of understanding homesteads?
I do to an extent. It's a very difficult. Uh, it's very difficult even for me to find agents that actually understand it in other areas. I'll default to if I can't find someone that I know specifically is going to be good in homesteading, I will find someone who actually does land deals.
Mhm.
Because at least someone who actually does land deals they're gonna be able to speak to some of the important things like your power and water and septic and subdividing and road
Sure.
frontage and various different things. So at least you're most of the way there. Um, you know, and then I'm always happy to talk with people, even if they're not necessarily buying in this area, talk with people. And then, Ryan does homestead consulting. He's great to talk to as well with properties. So, but yeah, I do have some different people in different areas. It is difficult to find someone who's both knowledgeable in that area and also an actual good agent.
Mhm.
I know that sounds terrible and maybe self-serving to an extent, but unfortunately, in every single profession that I've run across, there are good people and bad people. And
Yep.
by bad people, I don't mean like they're actually bad people.
No.
I mean there are bad people,
Oh,
I
yeah.
suppose. But what I'm talking about is not the bad people. I'm talking about the people that maybe aren't as good at their job as other people. Like,
Yeah, that Venn diagram is a very small sliver.
yes, unfortunately. And it's in every field. Like I've run
Yes.
across the worst possible lawyers you'd ever meet. You're like,
Oh.
you went to 8 years of law school and passed the bar, and like, seriously? And doctors, like, I come across terrible doctors all
Oh,
the time.
yes.
So like, it's not, it's certainly not unique to real estate agents, but there's a lot of people who get into the field because the barrier to entry is pretty low, and they get into the field and they don't take the time and the effort to really properly learn it. And it can be the same for other fields. I've had some CPAs that I was just really not happy with their quality of service. And so finding a good real estate agent, finding a good lender, finding a good inspector,
Yes.
those are all just really important. Like, you need someone who's really going to take the care, and they really care about their work, which can be tough to find these days. So I struggle with finding that in other people sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. No, I've seen multiple home inspection companies come and go in my area, because it looks like good money, right? But they don't realize, one, how litigious it can be if you don't do it right, and two, how much nuance there is into actually informing the client in what they need, rather than just taking some pictures and saying that doesn't look right. So yeah, it's everywhere.
There's way too much to learn there, really.
Mhm.
For anyone just to jump into it, like it's I would say home inspecting is probably another one where it's kind of crazy the barrier to entry is so low, honestly.
Yeah, in some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. I know people who have failed the test, 3, 4, or 5
Sure.
times.
Well, it's the same in
Uh,
real estate. We
Yeah,
have a test.
fair.
A lot of people fail that too, but you just keep taking it.
Yeah, I think the problem with home inspection is you really need to work with or ride with somebody who knows it and understands it for quite a while before you're really qualified. Even if you know and understand how homes are built,
Mm.
knowing how to report it, knowing how to follow the standards of practice, knowing how to put it together in a way that actually makes sense to a client is really hard. So that's a that's an art in and of itself, and it takes a long time to learn.
Speaking as a real estate agent, I'm not an inspector, but I've read a lot of inspection reports. It drives me absolutely bonkers when you have the inspectors call out some crazy stuff on a report and make it sound like a really big deal when it's perfectly standard for a
Right.
house of that age, specifically a house of that age.
Yep.
I had a house once. I was the listing agent. We got it under contract, and the buyer's inspector said that the electrical was a massive fire risk. It was like don't get me wrong, it was an older electrical, but it was
Yeah.
like 80s,
Yeah.
not like crazy. Certainly there were some deficiencies there, as with anything from the 80s, but it wasn't some like huge fire risk.
Yeah.
It completely scared the buyers off, and they wanted
Oh.
a complete electrical replacement. I'm like, that's not going to happen.
No, because by the 80s, you've got modern standard Romex. I mean, Jared, I can see Romex that's quite a bit older than the 80s.
Oh yeah, I've got
Nod
cloth
your head
wrapped right
there. Yeah.
over my head. Right? Yeah, there's cloth wrapped. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah,
You
80s.
had standard breakers at that
Yeah.
time. So my dad's an electrician. Like our electrical is about that same age, and
Mhm.
I've pulled the panel off and had him look at stuff, and he's like, well, this and this and this and this aren't great, but
Yep.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's working. It's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Inspectors walk an interesting kind of fine line of, you've got the standards of practice that you have to adhere by. So
Right.
there's things like sometimes bathroom vents into attics, they're not great, but
Oh yeah.
if they've been there for 30 years being used and there's no moisture damage, I'm like, why do I have to report this? Or there's all kinds of other things, but there's there's the making sure that your client is informed, but then, we have to report the things that are considered deficiencies. And then sometimes it's, this isn't that big of a deal, but if you go to sell it, the next inspector might make a big deal out of it. So yeah, it's an interesting balance. It's a really odd mix of things, but yeah, you're right, Anthony. It could be, I think some inspectors will go about things by going, big deal, just so that if something ever happens, they don't get in trouble, or because they don't understand the system well enough. So they just, I know a lot of inspectors who don't understand electrical very well, and they'll make a bigger deal out of something than it is.
Yeah. Well, and some inspectors, a lot of their experience is just on newer houses. And so when you start to get older houses, or
they freak out.
Yeah, or rural houses,
Yeah.
where maybe they are a little bit older and people just do things different. And obviously, I mean, there's risks when people DIY a lot of stuff, and you've got to, you have to assess that. I mean, wrong electrical can definitely cause fires. So I certainly don't want to diminish anything that comes up on an inspection report, but there's a difference between being like, this doesn't meet modern codes, but it's not abnormal for the age of the house. As opposed to, oh my gosh, your house is going to burn down because your electrical is 40 years old.
It's going to fall down because it doesn't have joist hangers, even though it's been there for 100 years.
Right.
Yeah. No, the nails in the wood at this point, they've merged together. They're never
fused into one.
They really have. I had we had a guy come out and quote us for some foundation stuff that we needed to have done, and he said, well, we can't actually like screw into this wood, it's too hard, we got to pilot hole everything, because all of our house is sold, all the wood's oak. It's like hard aged oak, like the stuff is hard as hard can be. So
well, it'll go from like, they put it in kind of green, or they used to, and so it would dry out, and as it dried out, it'd get this kind of bow in it a lot of times. So you'll get like floors and roofs and things that have these bows in them.
Like,
and it's, you could put 10 times the weight that's on them and they'd still be fine, but they've got a bow in them because that's how they cured. And it doesn't look nice, and insurance companies don't like it sometimes, but it doesn't mean there's necessarily something wrong with it.
You just got to get under there with a steamer and a jack.
I'll do it.
That's right. Yep.
No, old homes, like, I love them, but I mean, there's definitely things to think about. The construction was just different. I mean, our house was made to breathe. Like, if I tried to encapsulate the crawl space, I don't think it'd be a good idea. Because our house needs to breathe. So. And that was just the construction at the time.
Yep. Yeah, I'm still trying to find, and I've got huge gaps in between like the walls and the old logs, and so I've got air coming up through from the crawl space. Still trying to find those all the different gaps and get them sealed properly.
We have some pocket doors between our dining room and our living room. And on Saturday, I have one of those little infrared heat guns. On Saturday, our heater wasn't working properly. I need to get it serviced. So it was like 64 degrees in the house. But I took the little heat gun and I pointed it up as high as I could go under the pocket doors, and it was 45 degrees.
Ooh.
And I'm like, where is this cold air coming from? Because it's in between the wall, like it wasn't coming from the crawl space. So I don't know. Like, I've got some things I've got to address at some point as well, like that. But never ending, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah. Old homes, there's a certain charm and beauty and uniqueness to them, and if they're there and they're old, they've probably, they've stood the test of time in some way. So there's a benefit there, but you're always going to be doing maintenance.
They have
Mhm.
character.
That's right, character.
I mean, you can't beat the character. I mean, you probably can't see it, but that door behind me is original to this house, and
Aw.
it's got the original hardware on it. And I found actually on Amazon, I found the keys you can buy
Oh, that's
to
awesome.
to lock the doors. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we've got so much just like original character in the house that we would like to preserve as much as possible. And you don't really get that on the new houses unless you have tons of money to spend.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the
So-
hollow core doors.
Yeah, right.
Oh gosh, don't tell me about that.
Well, Jared, did you have any other questions for?
No, this has been
Anthony?
great. I really appreciate it, Anthony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on. This has been really cool to get to talk to you about, some of your adventures and what you've seen helping other people buy homesteads. Hopefully it's been really helpful for everybody listening as well. We like to go once around the horn and just let people know where we can be found. So, Anthony, you want to start us out?
Sure. So as you probably guessed, I'm Anthony Parker. My website is thislandtn.com. I see TN, I just think Tennessee. So thislandtn.com. We also have Tennessee_homestead realtor as our Instagram, and we're very active on there. And then if you ever want to call or text or whatever, my phone number is 931-321-6890.
You just put it out on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Now you're sunk. Yeah, we
I get so many spam phone
Oh
calls.
yeah.
me too. Yeah, so I put if people are watching this on YouTube, whether live or afterwards, I put Anthony's information down there. So links for him are down in the description, as well as for me and as well as for Jared. So speaking of Jared, do you
Yes, sir.
want to give us your spiel?
Yeah, who
Sure.
are you, Jared?
Who am I? I'm Jared Wilson. I own Resilient Living. So we're a small store right between Sparta and Spencer, right on 111, corner Hodges Ferry Road. I sell freeze-dried foods. I sell books. I've got a whole bunch of books on growing crops, raising critters, bushcraft, whatever. I got my firearms license this morning, so we'll be getting set up in the next month or so to do firearm sales and gunsmithing. So that'll be the next step. I got a whole selection of knives and camping gear, and yeah, so swing by the shop and check us out. You can check us out at resilientliving.com, and all the other socials are all Resilient Living.
I want to be your friend, but you're too far away.
Oh, road trip.
Yes.
Check out our website.
I love Sparta. It's such a cool town.
It
and
is.
I mean, who would not want to be able to live in Sparta and say, "This is Sparta"?
They don't say it as often as I liked. That was my expectation. I moved here. I'm like, this, it's got to be Like, why not?
That's so unfortunate.
Missed opportunity.
It's like you go up to Paris, Tennessee, and you're like, "Come on, there's an Eiffel Tower here." I'm in Paris. I would want to if I was in Paris, I'd be like, you know what? If there is not a French bakery here, I need to have one. Like, I may not be French, but
But
there
we're gonna have
needs
one.
to be one here. We're in Paris. Come on.
With an espresso shop in it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there is actually a really cool French bakery in Nashville. I can't
Nice.
remember the name of it, but we love going whenever
Nice.
we're in Nashville, which isn't crazy frequent. And he's an actual French guy.
There you go.
That helps.
Yeah, it does.
I think.
It does. I think.
All right,
maybe.
Ryan, what about you?
All right, my name's
Who are you?
Ryan Steva. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, please like and subscribe, or if it's on Jared's, do the same. But I help people with homesteading stuff. You can find my information at the homesteadconsultant.com. And then my YouTube channel or handle is the Homestead Consultant. And basically anywhere you search online for the Homestead Consultant, that'll be me. So that's my spiel. Thank you both for being here. I've had a lot of fun talking with you.
And you inspect homes.
And you,
Well, yeah, I usually don't. I don't want to confuse people.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Homestead consultant, no home
Yeah.
inspecting.
That's right. No, I inspect homes too.
It's his alter ego.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of similar. Like you know, I know I've sent you to some properties where you did both at the same time.
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. There's one recently, and I obviously have to be careful about what I say or who I say it about. But yeah, it's really fun getting to do the inspection and kind of a overview of the property at the same time. And I've done a couple of those for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's always very helpful. So, you know, because you know, I'm walking through properties with people, and I can point out a lot of stuff, but you know, Ryan can really go more in depth on some things.
Well, cool.
So,
Thank you so much, Anthony, for being here and spending your night with us.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for watching, and catch you next time Tuesday at 7 like normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
See ya.